I'm Julia. I've loved reading since I was really little, and I think that's because I've got this insanely vivid imagination, and reading really helps me to escape from my own imagination and thoughts, but also just I love understanding other people and things, and is there a better way to do it?
Hi, my name is Anna Madrigal. I study at UQ. I do a double degree in communication and arts. And I love reading because it's something I've always done since I was young. It's a great escape, and I just think more people should do it.
I'm Samantha Hammond. I'm a UQ student. I just graduated my Bachelor of Arts last semester, and I'm now doing a graduate certificate in writing, editing, and publishing. And I love reading just because I've always loved reading. You know, my family was really big on books and stories, and I just really like, you know, immersing myself in new worlds and new characters.
I got into reading from a very young age, like I think at around 8 or 9, initially from the Magic Tree House series by Mary Pope Osborne. There are like these little adventures by these siblings, Jack and Annie, as they just go in time and in different locations to learn about things. I have a lot of them still from my childhood, but I think the book that really made me love reading was the Inkheart books by Cornelia Funk. I just loved just how much the books could transport me. I just thought there was so much drama and so much adventure in them, and I just felt they were really made for people who liked reading and wanted an escape from it all. So yeah.
Okay, so the first series that I remember really loving was like Emily Rodda's Fairy Realm series. They were these really pretty like books about a magical fairy realm, and they had really nice like hardcover copies, and I had to beg my year 1 teacher to let me use them instead of like the school assigned reading list, because I loved them so much.
While I am a fully fledged escapist, I can say that books that resonate with me, that stories that I share any form of experience with, they really stick with me. And for that reason, the Harry Potter series definitely first got me into reading. I can honestly say that my high school identity channeled way too much Hermione Granger vibes, and for that I can only apologize to my friends and classmates.
Okay. See, honestly, I prefer to let the story stand on its own. I don't know if I'd like ask anyone anything in particular. I do remember though, when I was 15 or 16, my current favourite series was the Queen's Thief series by Megan Whalen Turner, and my mum was running a writing podcast, and I got her to email Megan Whalen Turner and ask her to come on the podcast so I could just like stand in the corner and stare awkwardly and not actually ask any questions. But Megan Whalen Turner couldn't make it, which was sad, but she did write a very lovely email with some like funny jokes in it, and I've cherished it ever since.
A question I would like to ask my favourite author, which is probably Jane Austen, is how did you write your dialogue? Did you imagine it all beforehand? Did it just flow as you wrote? This is something I really want to know.
So I'd say my favorite author at the moment, I can't think of a favorite author at the moment. I like a lot of them: Stephen King, Talia Hibbert, Gillian Flynn. I think I generally ask them where they get their inspiration from, but in the sense of like what media they were consuming by the time they were writing their different books, because I think that in order to best understand how a work was made, it's kind of looking at what media they were consuming, what books or films or TV shows they were watching and reading, as that will often inform the work that they were creating at the time. And I guess I'd also ask how they came to figuring out what the main idea they wanted to express in their novel was, and how the little decisions or hints that they laid throughout in terms of imagery or character or prose that they decided on using, even just sentence length, of how the little decisions they made and why they thought that would be the best way to express that idea. Because I think books are one of a great medium in order to express not really lessons, but really like specific themes and ideas and emotions onto a reader. So being able to make all the decisions together and how to achieve that for a book, I think is very important and very cool.
One of my favorite literary tropes is probably the mad woman. Jane Eyre, The Vegetarian, Lady Audley's Secret, they all just perfectly encapsulate how trapped women were, continue to be in society.
My favorite book trope right now at the moment was just like female protagonists who are very outspoken, who get into trouble or just unpleasant or will just drive the plot forward. I just really enjoy female characters who, you know, speak their mind, get in there and get stuff done, are essential to the plot. It's just kind of that anti-hero archetype that's found a lot in Gillian Flynn novels. I just really enjoy. I just like mean women getting into trouble and making things happen. It's just very exciting for me.
Ooh, okay, so I mean I do enjoy good, like, you know, some romance tropes, like some good fake dating, some good enemies to lovers, but I think the most weirdly specific trope that I've encountered recently is 4 separate series which I've recently enjoyed. The Masquerade series by Seth Dickinson, the Gideon the Ninth series by Tamsin Muir, the Hex Arcade series by Yoon Ha Lee, and A Memory Called Empire series by Arcady Martine. All 4 of them have had a lesbian main character who by the end of the book or series has had another character implanted in her brain through some like science fictional wizardry or technological, you know, magic. And I just think that it's a weirdly specific thing to have happened 4 times. So that's my current favourite trope.
I'd feel most comfortable reading almost anywhere. Like often when I'm on the bus or on the train, it's a nice little space to read. I'll just read on my phone usually. Though sometimes other than that, I will read just in my room on my bed. Can't complain with that.
I mostly just read in the bath. I think that the thing about it is that you go in there and you kind of set up your space and you have your snacks and you have your book pile and there's nothing else in there to distract you. So for focused reading time, I think that's kind of, you know, where I like to read most.
The place that I feel most comfortable reading is the floor, preferably cross-legged and leant against something. It just always gets me into a really relaxed zone.
I mostly like fantasy and speculative fiction. I just really like, you know, seeing like the weird things that people can imagine and like the difference in like a political alternatives that can be imagined in that genre. But I will really just read anything that has queer characters in it. I'm not too picky.
What genres of books I like to read? Mostly the things I love reading are fantasy, thrillers, and most recently romance. I really enjoyed reading.
An example of a social realist novel that I would recommend would probably be Middlemarch by George Eliot. I read it for the first time recently and just absolutely devoured it. It's quite heartbreaking at times with its portrayal of marriage, especially in the Victorian era, but definitely worth the read and very insightful.
So as for books for each genre, I'd say for fantasy, I really am enjoying the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. Right now I'm reading the Night Watch books. I just think they're so funny and so creative and just very immersive world building that I've seen for a while, and those ones have been very enjoyable to read. For thriller, I'd recommend either Stephen King's book Misery, or Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl. I just love those 2 books. For romance, I'd recommend Talia Hibbert's Take a Hint, Danny Brown. I think that's an excellent book. I really enjoyed it.
My favourite book series currently is the Masquerade series by Seth Dickinson, which starts with The Traitor Brew Cormorant. It's over here. It's excellent. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless you're feeling particularly mentally strong because it is a bit dark, but it's a really powerful exploration of like a young woman who grows up, and she essentially is on like a mission to take down the empire that colonized her island from within, and she has a terrible time, but like she tries her best, and I love her very much.
My book collection looks like a lot of shelves and a lot of not insecurity, but uncertainty on how to sort things. I sort books by genre, if it's a graphic novel, or by how big it is, or kind of if I was reading them at around the same time, if it's nonfiction or prose fiction. But generally it is a bit hodgepodge and just shows that I just need more shelf space, if anything.
Ooh, well, I have I have several shelves where I put like my different categories of books. So this is right above my bedhead, and this one has all of my favorite books in it, and I periodically kind of go through and refresh them and put them into different piles based on their vibes. And I also have like a fiction collection, I have a non-fiction collection, I have like a literary fictional like books that I've kind of like studied in class, or ones that are kind of like classics. I have a separate shelf for those, and they're all in different areas of my house, and I spend a lot of time staring at them and rearranging them. I've tried doing it by author, by color, by vibe, by like when I bought, like all of these different like systems that are never quite right, so I just constantly have to go through and redo them.
My book collection is very random and spread all across my room. It includes a lot of my reading history, including the rather embarrassing teenage dystopian novels that are behind me on the bookshelf.
Okay, so this is Confessions of the Fox by Jordi Rosenberg, and it's about a trans academic who's uncovering a memoir by a trans man in like 18th century England. He's like a thief, and so halfway through the book, the academic who's writing the frame story has to kind of escape with the manuscript to stop it being taken over by like this evil publishing company, and he runs away and joins in with a group of like archivist freedom fighters in this kind of vague fantasy world, and they have a very cool library called Stretches, and I'm going to read the description. So it's a colossal library in chitin, spiderweb and glass that sprawls at the edges of the floating alleys of a central square. It hovers above the ubiquitous water on a series of thick stilts. The architecture and location of the building are such that it captures and holds the red of the setting sun and the thatch of wicker reeds that composes its soft, seemingly infinite roof. And it has a bunch of different, like sections with stuff like the history of the senses and thermogenic aesthetics, and it's very cool. And I would like to go there.
Earlier this year I went camping at Lamington National Park, and we stayed overnight at Binnaburra. And there is the most gorgeous wooden A-frame chalet there, and on the top level in the loft was this little library, and I've got to say that's probably my ideal version. It was just so atmospheric and cozy and beautiful, and the windows opened out onto just mountain ranges, and it just seemed the most perfect place to read.
My favorite fictional or ideal library would probably have to be the library in Ankh-Morpork in the Discworld series with the librarian who is an orangutan. I just love how it's described as books as being inherently having words equal power equals energy, so libraries just have magic in them. So in the way that the library is described, it very much seems like something that's alive and could hurt you, so wouldn't be a dull moment in that library, and I think that'd be quite exciting to explore.
A weirdly specific condition for me to enjoy reading is sitting cross-legged. I don't like chairs, and I don't like having my legs out flat, so being on the floor or being on any sort of surface where I can cross my legs just leads to optimum read time.
I don't really have a specific condition to enjoy reading, the process of reading. Like, I've been known to read on cars and buses, in boats, walking. As a kid, I'd always just walk around the hallways or to and from school with my nose in a book. Like, I guess my condition for reading is I don't really have one. I can just kind of read wherever. Yeah.
Well, one weird thing is that I really can't do ebooks. Like, I don't like ebooks except exclusively for romance novels, which for some reason overcome my aversion to ebooks and allow me to enjoy it. So that, I don't know why, but yeah.